Oh, I think we're ending there. Wall ups is really cool. Wall ups is awesome.
Yeah, and it's also covered with full thunderstorm right now.
Oh yeah, it's a disaster. But like the weather there is pretty bad, but I think it should improve as we get underway. In fact, I kind of know that because I am actually based very near Baltimore. I can look out the window. One of those handy things.
Live weather looks pretty scary.
I can't believe I just flew all the way there over the last hour. WAL. I didn't even read the thing. Actually, I did. Perfect landing. Cleared up right on final.
Nobody saw you, it doesn't count.
Apparently one person did.
No kicks, it didn't happen.
Alright. Might as well get rolling. I think we are all lined up for runway 24, so you might as well take off from there. Next waypoint is over the river, about a 330 magnetic, and then we'll be turning there up towards College Park. You should see the Washington Monument on your right.
And this weather is going to get better, right? You promised.
It certainly will get better as you get closer to Baltimore.
Sounds like a promise to me.
Go ahead and head us. Yeah, this might not be as VFR as it seems. Might have to turn this to a little bit clearer. Yeah, let's try a few clouds. That's a little nicer.
Yeah, that's a happy sky.
So I'm gonna kind of dial this in at about 1,500 feet. My airplane is November 81 Romeo Delta. And we might as well head straight for the Washington Monument. Everybody who actually grew up in DC has the height of that memorized, 555 feet. Nothing in DC is taller than the Washington Monument, and most things don't even approach it. So you get a view of it basically from anywhere in the city. It's a nice landmark here. Now, of course, Dulles is on your left. After 9/11, quite severe restrictions were put in place around DC. And so if you're taking the RNAV into any of these, the south-going runways, you have to fly along very tightly to a whole bunch of waypoints. And if you deviate, you'll be essentially in a totally flight-restricted area, and bad things will happen to you. So it's very interesting to fly in that area now. just under us, you see the Beltway there. This whole area in Northern Virginia jams up something awful in the morning. It really, the traffic here is just unbelievable. To the left of us is the city of Alexandria, and it kind of is a nice, very old town. There's a lot of kind of original colonial stuff in that downtown. It's a very nice place to visit. Beyond that, you'll see Arlington. A lot of people, it can be a little bit more affordable to live in Arlington than in the city, and you get more for your money. So a lot of people who commute in actually live in Arlington. Especially if you're a defense contractor, they tend to like that area because it's right close to their work. So, of course, beyond Dulles, you'll see the Pentagon, which is the world's largest office building. And it was built to essentially run the Cold War. That little area in the middle, during the Cold War, they used to refer to that as Ground Zero, because that was where, presumably, the Russians trained their nukes, which I've always found amusing. The way it's laid out is 5 rings, and there's air between them, because it was built before air conditioning. So essentially, you would open a window to get airflow, and that's that design that's still how it's built today. You know?
These A320s in the airport must think they're getting mobbed.
A swarm of very angry bees. So just behind the Pentagon, you'll see Arlington Cemetery, and that's kind of, that is the national cemetery of the U.S. JFK is buried there, Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, all of that. It used to be Lee's plantation, and during the Civil War, it was converted into a cemetery. It's really pretty. If you get the chance, highly recommend the visit. So, of course, off to your right, you're seeing the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial. The National Mall is that big open grass space. The buildings on either side of it tend to be the Smithsonian museums, which are all free. I'm not sure how many are open right now because of the whole pandemic situation, but it's, especially Air and Space, is really, really cool. You can see some of the space capsules, some historic planes. I always loved that one when I was a kid. An absolute blast. It also looks like a runway, and it's like taken off from it in the sim about a bazillion times. It's really fun. Off to the left, you see the White House, and at the far side of the National Mall, you can see the Capitol. One of the cool things about the Capitol, the inauguration used to always be on the east side, so the far side from us. Reagan, who had been a movie star, looked at that and said, well, that doesn't make any sense. We're going to do this on the west side, which faces out to the National Mall. And ever since then, it has always been done on the west side, which is probably a prettier view. Any of the buildings you see that kind of have the I guess turquoise-looking roof, those tend to be federal buildings, and that is, of course, corroded copper. They were built to last forever. and we might as well follow these train tracks headed to the north. This is Union Station right here. It is way prettier than it looks in the sim. It is a very old building with lots of statues, and you can kind of get a sense of that if you look at the gardens in front of it. But it is also a great place to visit, and you know, if you're going into DC, you can beat the traffic and take the train. College Park is about on a 64 magnetic if you're at the train station. The interesting thing about the College Park Airport is it's not so much the runway, it's more the obstructions. There's very high trees on either side of it, and it's pretty short. So it can be a challenging little airport, even not as challenging as some of the stuff we normally fly into in this group, but for normal people, it can be a challenging airport. What you're seeing off to the left of it is the university. That's University of Maryland College Park, which has had really tremendous success. A lot of great programs, especially computer science. If you want to study that, it's a beautiful campus. Really a nice place to go. You can also see the stadium. Back when I was younger, it was good in basketball, but it comes and goes. So there's not much wind right now, so runway 15 is probably a good option. It's not really going to matter.
Well, the live weather's not so bad.
Yeah, that's about right. And as you get closer to Baltimore, it'll improve. And let me know if I'm flying too fast or you want me if you want to hold on and look at something. No particular rush for this one.
Pack leading.
So we're landing at which airport?
The one right under me, College Park. That is Kilo Charlie Golf Sierra.
Great, thank you.
Is it touching or are we stopping?
Might as well full stop, let everybody catch up, and then we'll take off. actually, the pack looks pretty. Yeah, let's full stop. Let everybody kind of come in. This will be the nicest runway I think we used during this whole trip, except for wall-ups.
Good, I like a challenge.
Lucky we don't have crashes on.
We'd be flying into each other. Alright, I think we got most of the pack, so we might as well take off. The next course is going to take us up to Glen Eyre Airport, which is just, a tiny little field. It will be basically a little bit shy of north at about a 360 magnetic. And off to the right, you'll see 95, Route 1, and we'll be passing over Columbia, which is kind of an interesting place, and I'll tell you more about that on the way. And of course, jump in with questions. If you wanted to know something more about where we're passing over, like, I've lived here forever, so I might know.
Live weather right now looks really nice.
Yeah, it's pretty. That big highway off to your right, that's I-95, and that's kind of your main north-south route on the East Coast for those who haven't been here. This area it gets kind of bad in the mornings, but it's not too bad. Behind it, you'll see a little road that's kind of snaky but parallel to it. That's Route 1. Route 1, turn of about 1900, used to be what 95 is. And in fact, many of the things you think of as being roadside are on Route 1 rather than 95. So like your muffler shops, your used car dealerships, your little diners, all that stuff. It was, putting in the highway was a big change. And if you talk to your grandparents, they'll tell you, like, they used to ride the highway just for fun and do the Beltway because it was a big deal when it came in. When they were putting in parkways, they really did mean it. They were parkways. Like, the idea was that people would, pull off and take a look, and they would be a kind of a recreation in and of themselves. That's less true now, but it was kind of a cool idea. So we're passing over the Patuxent River, and off to your right you'll see the town of Columbia, Maryland. Columbia is kind of an interesting case. Before it was built, and I think that was in the 60s, it was kind of just a bunch of farms. And then it was developed as kind of a planned community. It would be divided into little towns, and each one would have its own little shopping center and all that kind of stuff. That's kind of played out. In some places it's worked better than others. But it's the idea is kind of cool, and you can see how it's kind of grouped into little areas if you fly over it. A lot of circular roads. It's designed to essentially not be grid patterned, but to hopefully create little communities by giving them some sort of isolation. It's interesting case.
You are doing very well. We are just shy.
Oh, good. So the next airport we're flying into is Glen Air. And Glen Air, it's by Glen Elg. One of the big questions, this is the first of the airports where you ask the question, is this more an airport or is this just some dude's backyard? That will continue to a ridiculous extent as we get to the Eastern Shore. Yeah, so this is east-west, so 28 or 10.
500. 500.
And we might as well just turn around and take off from this one. Okay, headed almost due east, 95 magnetic. Not the world's greatest takeoff for those watching the stream. But for this next one, if you have an NDB or a way of picking up an NDB, dial in, what is it? 371. The cool thing about that'll be Ellicott City, and I'll tell you a little bit about that on the way.
It was 321.
Three seven one.
371.
So Ellicott City, like a lot of places around here, used to be a mill town. That was what it was built for, which means it's on the water. The challenge you have with that, it's as it becomes more popular, you get more development around it, which, puts more asphalt on the ground, which reduces the ability of the ground to absorb the water from rains. Now, the town itself really is on the water. It's just like the main drag of it is kind of on a hill that's right above the creek that used to provide the power for the mill. And a couple years back, it flooded horribly because of the development around it, and basically the whole town was washed out. So then they, kind of fixed that, and then the next year, wouldn't you know, it did the daggone thing again. So Ellicott City, a lot of it is hospitality, a lot of antiques dealerships, little restaurants and stuff like that. So they're trying to figure stuff out. The pandemic has not been easy for this town. They are, but it's a lovely place to visit. I highly recommend it if you get the chance. They're working with the Army Corps of Engineers to try and figure this thing out. Yep, and as promised, the weather is indeed clearing up. Headed towards the city of Baltimore now, you should see a giant road that's heading in, and we'll kind of follow that in. That's Edmonston Avenue, and off to the left, the park you see is Leakin Park. That's pretty way in. You'll see essentially that there's, as we get closer to the city, there's a highway that kind of opens up mid-city, which doesn't really go anywhere. It just kind of drops out onto Route 40. Well, they built that some years back, before my time, with the idea that they would expand the highway all the way out, like towards Ellicott City. It never happened. So there's just this weird highway that doesn't really go anywhere, and just the only thing it does is get you downtown really quick. So it's they're thinking of getting rid of that, but we'll see what happens.
Did you smuck into a tree rock?
Yeah.
I see not.
I'll be back when I stop that.
Yeah, gotcha. I was watching. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then all of a sudden, whoop, I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah, that was me. I was hoping nobody saw that.
Yeah, we seen that.
Yeah, I saw that.
I was having fun up until then.
This is quite the highway. Holy moly.
Oh yeah, yeah, and like what you're seeing around it, these all tend to be like grocery stores and little hotels. It tends to be a little cheaper to operate in the county than it is in the city. So a lot of grocery stores are right outside the city limits because it's just so much cheaper to live out there and to do business out there. Like the moment you pass into the city, your property taxes go up by a full percent. So if you have a decent sized home, you get better services and it's a little cheaper to live out in the county.
500.
And you should be able to see the highway to nowhere.
I think I just passed it. It comes down to one lane.
Yeah, exactly. So like there's really not a point to that thing, but it is indeed what was done. So the next place probably to take a look at is the Inner Harbor, and that is exactly what it says on the tin. You'll see essentially the area by that giant big tall Transamerica building and Pandora and all of that stuff. The thing to look for there is the Constellation, which is an American warship that was really active during the Civil War. You'll be able to pick it out because it has these kind of covers on the sails. It was part of a slave patrol. As slavery was illegal, as it was illegal to import slaves, I should say, it enforced that. So it essentially would interdict vessels that were doing slaving operations in Africa and impound them to prevent more slaves from being captured.
Which is the other way around today.
Yeah, off to the right, you'll also see on the way in the hospital. It's the thing with the helipad on the top. That's University of Maryland Hospital. There's two kind of big hospitals we'll pass by, University and Hopkins. Hopkins is the more interesting case because it just did a massive expansion. All of the buildings are kind of named after the Saudi sheikh or guy from UAE or whoever got great treatment there and, kind of gave them a whole bunch of money. Probably the most interesting thing, though, besides, of course, Fort McHenry, which we'll pass, is that hill just south of the city, just south of downtown, I should say. That's Federal Hill. So you might note that Maryland, though it was a slave state, never seceded from the Union during the Civil War. Now, there were riots. People wanted to secede. But the reason they didn't is because after those riots, Lincoln essentially put a whole bunch of artillery on that hill and pointed it at downtown. And people got the message. And thus, Maryland never seceded. So we'll keep going east. There's going to be a big road going north-south, and we'll kind of go up that road as kind of the next point. Right at that junction, what you'll want to look for is a little tower. That's the shot tower. That's the symbol of the city. It's on the flag, and it is exactly what it says on the tin. So how would you make balls of shot back in the day? You would essentially pass molten lead through a grate. It would fall, and like raindrops are perfectly circular. The same is true of drops of lead. And then there would be sand on the bottom, and that's how you got your musket balls. So, kind of a cool thing. I don't know if I'd want to be the guy carrying molten lead up the stairs. That doesn't sound like a great time, but that was how it was done. Off to the left, right about halfway up, you'll see these kind of checkered buildings. That's the Art College, Maryland Institute College of Art. Great art school. Beyond that, you'll see Druid Hill Park and its lake. They just redid that. They spent a tremendous amount of time and money, really cleaned up the lake, put in a whole bunch of new pump systems, all of that stuff. Hopefully it'll shore it up for a good long time. And we'll just kind of go along the lake here and then up the road alongside the lake, whose name I forget. I think it's what it is. So the next thing off to your left, that's Mandauman Mall. If you hear about like, oh, there was some big fight in a mall in Baltimore, that's probably where it was. Mandauman's Mall is troubled a lot. Like, there used to be a Target store, but it left after the riots, so they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with that. Off to the right, you'll see the zoo. The Baltimore Zoo is fantastic. You know, it's got all your kind of big-ticket animals, all your penguins, all of your kind of... I think it even has a rhino. So it's a very cool place to visit if you're in the area. In that whole big cloud of trees there. And let's head on back to downtown.
What's the heading?
So I'm heading 163, but the area you guys will want to head up the highway, that's gonna be it's gonna be about due north. So about 40. And if you're not sure where you are, just head back to the Inner Harbor, kind of the big built-up area downtown.
I hope you know where you're going, Sim Dude, because I'm following you.
Yeah, don't entirely continue on the Magenta line. We'll hang out here in Baltimore and take a look at some stuff for a while. So the cool thing, you see this, if you see it, take a look out for this peninsula south of the city. At the end of that is Fort McHenry. So you know that song about the Star Spangled Banner, the national anthem? That was Francis Scott Key during the War of 1812. He saw that the flag was still at this fort after its bombardment. That is, and the bridge that you're going to see going across the water is, of course, appropriately the Francis Scott Key Bridge. This big port you see, this is a working port. This is Seagirt. It is containers, coal, everything. Everything goes through this port. Very busy. All times of the year. One of the things, if you keep an eye out, and you probably won't be able to see it too well, if you remember from history, there was this time during, I think it was the 60s, late 60s, when the U.S. decided that there would be nuclear reactors for peace. And they actually made a ship that was powered by nuclear reactors for civilian purposes, the Savannah. It is parked in the harbor here, and you can barely pick it out in the sim, but it is there. There's also a Russian captured, I presume, sub that you can visit. So all kinds of cool stuff to see here.
Is there an underground highway?
There, yeah. So if you go further on, there's a tunnel between the south side over here and the Canton area. The tolls on it are kind of ridiculous, but yes, there are some highways that just become tunnels here.
That's crazy.
There's actually two of them. There's one that kind of goes over to the to this area by the fort, and one that goes to the land on the south end. Both of them kind of, I think, what was it, about $3 or $4, something like that. Now, if you're headed out, one of the things you'll see there's this kind of industrial area just to the east of the port that's kind of blank. It looks like there should be something there. That's Sparrows Point. Sparrows Point used to be the world's biggest iron refinery. That was where Bethlehem Steel did all of their work, and that provided jobs for generations. And unfortunately, that all is kind of shut down, and it's mostly like Amazon warehouses and kind of fulfillment and all of that stuff. But you can see the imprint on the land is still huge. It's this giant kind of hole where it looks like something should be present. All right, so feel free to keep flying around for a bit. Next airport will be a full stop at, I believe it's, what is the name of that field? W48, Essex. It is a pretty short field. Again, got some pretty tall trees on either side of it. Fun little field to get into. Also a sea base, I think. One of the things you'll note here is this area is still pretty affordable. If you want to live in a place where you can have a little dock on the water, you can absolutely do this around here. Have a little sailboat. Kind of a fun place to live.
What's up, guys?
Hey, we are right near W48. We're coming in for a full stop, and so feel free to hop in.
Are you from around here?
Oh yeah, I live just south of the city. Grew up right south of the city as well, in Columbia. Now I moved out, lived in California for a long time, came back. Might do one of these for Southern California. That might be fun as well.
Our FS6 servers in La Plata.
Oh, good deal. It's a fun area. I was mostly in Orange County, like Laguna and Newport Beach, all that area.
All right, I gotta take off from an event here, or not event, previous arrangements. So hey, great tour, and I'll catch up with you guys again.
Thanks for coming.
What's with these retro windows, like this purple tint?
So in anybody else's aircraft, you tend to see that these days. Hopefully they'll fix it.
It's a problem with the liveries that have to get updated to match the latest fix.
Yeah.
It happened to us in our liveries. They remapped some of the textures.
Like as soon as you zoom out, it turns purple. Like pretty cool.
Yeah, those are actually the icing surfaces.
Sparky. Causing mayhem.
Sorry about that.
I actually heard your wheels hit. It was like. You guys missed a cool little Jamaican flight. It's just before this.
Nice.
On a small island,
All right, let's go ahead and get lined up and get going for the next one. Next one is, again, the airports will get a little bit more questionable as we go on. I think this is the last, airport, except for the one past the Bay Bridge. And the next one is about 211. Yeah, and I can promise you it is not actually this pretty right where it is, but it does sometimes get this way.
the real weather actually really cleared up. It was real soupy in the beginning, eh?
Little bit.
Where is this anyway? Like USA somewhere?
This is all Maryland, on the Chesapeake Bay. right by Baltimore.
I've got some baseball fields down there.
Yeah, so all of this tends to be just areas that kind of grew out of the city. You know, people who wanted to live near the city, but for whatever reason didn't want to live in the city. A lot of this used to be kind of working class, especially because of Sparrows Point. You know, Sparrows Point, it was the refinery. You could get like, a lot of the schools didn't need to be that good because you could get a union job right out of school and then you were pretty much set for life. Again, you know, with the industrialization, it really hit this area hard. And so it's not quite what it once was. Next one is MD43.
Touch and go there.
Yeah, let's make it a touch and go. But you can see the terrain is beautiful. Like, the Chesapeake Bay doesn't get cut up that bad when it storms, so you can pretty much go sailing most of the year here. It gets a little cold in the winter, but it's lovely to be out on the bay. But you can also obviously go fishing. I'll talk about that a little more. But you know, it's catch all kinds of spot, little any kind of little fish like that. Cook them up.
Rockfish.
Oh yeah.
Catfish.
Lots of catfish. Lots of catfish. Really flavorful. A lot of any of the fried restaurants in Baltimore, they're all gonna serve lake trout. If you're in Baltimore, get lake trout. Like, it's pretty good.
In no way the chat's cheaper than chicken. Well, the salmon, sorry.
It's amazing. And probably fresh too, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, next one is 230 Magnetic, headed towards another little field. One of the cool things, a couple miles to the west of this field is the Patuxent, what do they call it? Patuxent Research Refuge, which is kind of a weird thing if you think about it. But if you wonder where they learn how to do forestry and how to manage forests, that's where they do it. It is kind of an experimental site for forestry. Very cool to visit, like basically functions as a park, but actually an active research site as well. Oh, and just to the east of that last field, there's a really fun dog park. Or dog beach, excuse me. Oh, I also forgot to mention, you're passing the fixed splat. There's a lot of fixes with funny names, but that's one of them. I think there's a whole bunch of food-themed ones around here. Does anybody remember which airport has donut and coffee? One of the fixes over Annapolis that we'll be passing is Navy, Navey, of course. Got a pretty big pack here. I think everybody's all together though, so we should be able to make this one a touch and go as well.
One.
3MD4. Mike, Delta 4.
I just did a drift on the runway.
This is probably the most traffic this runway has had ever. Course is 102. We are heading over, what is it? The Naval Academy. That's right. It is that kind of square area at the north side of Annapolis. You'll see it, the buildings are, you'll see massive ball fields on the east side. Keep an eye out for that. That is the kind of the Navy's college, where a lot of the officer corps comes from. It's an interesting process to get into one of those. You have to essentially interview with a senator and get a recommendation from a senator to get into any of the military schools. All the senators have their aides interview, and I think some of them do it personally for the final round. So very competitive. If you get in, it's a big deal. They also have this thing, I think it's when people become second years, there's this monument that they entirely grease, and they put the cap that second years wear on the top of it. And so it takes about, between half an hour to 2 hours. But the people who are graduating and going up to the next year must climb it using only their bodies. So they circle it and climb on top of each other to get that cap off the top. It's an old tradition. Very cool. this area in front of Annapolis is called Parole. So, you know, if you see someone, you ask where they're from, and they say Parole, that they're not recently out of jail. They're from here. I mean, maybe they're also recently out of jail, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. Kind of a weird thing to name a town.
Some gorgeous clouds and sun feeling.
Yeah, look off your left wing. It's really pretty over there. So the next point of interest is going to be the Bay Bridge, which you should see pretty much straight ahead of you. The thing to note about it is look for a little park just north of the entrance on this shore. That's Sandy Point. And it's not so much the place by the coast, by the beach, that's the best fishing, but it's that little inlet into a kind of a pool there. If you fish there, it's fantastic. You're pretty much guaranteed to catch stuff. The Bay Bridge itself, because of its height and because of kind of where it is, it gets pretty windy. It used to be, I don't know if this is still true, but when I was growing up, you could pull over to that visitor center and hire someone to drive your car over the Bay Bridge if you did not want to, deal with the winds or it freaked you out. Some people have real phobias about that thing. But if you're passing through the area, definitely stop at Sandy Point. It's a really beautiful little park there. There's always people fishing.
There's that Naval Academy.
Yeah, you should see it right at the end of Annapolis, right on the water. Now, one of the current controversies, they're thinking about building a third span of this bridge. It does back up pretty awful in the summers. You know, what are you going to do? They're looking at different sites, kind of north of here, south of here. Still very early stages. We'll see what happens with it. Yeah, if you're near me, it's that little lake there, that little inlet there. Apparently the fishing is amazing. I think this is one of the bridges you can fly under, though.
Yeah, the cars are driving on the water.
They don't make you drive on the water.
I mean, now I understand where people get phobias.
I mean, if they did, that would be totally understandable. And we might as well do a touch and go. We'll do a full stop at the one after this. The one after this is much smaller. This, it's kind of a little GA airport here. A lot of people. This big strip of land you're looking at here is Kent Island, which is kind of a nice place to have a little vacation property or to visit on a weekend. Kent Island is kind of the start of the Eastern Shore in agricultural Maryland. A lot of corn, soybeans, and chicken grown out there, and I'll say more about that later. But this, from here on out, you will see a lot more farm. A little bit of a crosswind here. So Kent Island is also known for one other thing. Well, probably many other things, but one thing that comes to mind. There's an NSA facility on Kent Island, and it does research on antenna and wave propagation. There was a Russian retreat house that was set up nearby that was believed to be basically explicitly to spy on that NSA facility, and they shut that down a couple of years back. Yeah, next one is 7 Mike Delta 9. And we'll make that a full stop. Getting a little hazy out here for sure.
This is VFI into IMC, basically.
Kind of looks that way. Could turn down the weather a bit. Pay your money. There you go. You can all scud run it if you're so inclined. And this is the start of the airports that are not so much airports as some dude's backyard. The flattest part of some dude's backyard. Let's go ahead and do a full stop here, get the angle together.
Giveaway also happens in 1 minute.
Nice.
Speedy Retreat is the winner.
Congratulations.
Time for me to come back.
I like how there's a road that just goes straight through the runway. Got occasional cars driving right by. Anybody else see that?
No, this bridge came up pretty quick through the clouds, so I didn't see much.
And if you're doing live weather and you made that, I'm impressed.
Yeah, just saw a car pass by.
There was no stopping, and yes, I was in live weather, but I was not going to make it on that short field. And I was trimming trees as I was coming in.
I'm in live weather. I had to do one little go around, but I came back for the second time and made it. It's a
Nicely
sleepy mess
done.
out here.
That it is. All right, let's go ahead and take off from this one. Next one is DE15. A lot of little cornfields out here, and you'll note that I'll tell you more about that on the way. .116 magnetic. So you'll see a lot of what Flight Simulator thinks are two-story office buildings. Those are not two-story office buildings, unless you think chickens work in offices. Those are chicken houses. A lot of the chicken in the U.S. is produced right here on the Eastern Shore. I mentioned that the big crops around here are chicken, corn, and soybeans, and you'll know that those are very energy-intensive crops, so a lot of fertilizer gets used. That's not so great for the bay, and one of the big things that they work on is capturing the fertilizer so it does not cause the growth of algae, which kills off large amounts of fish. But just keep your eyes open. You will see a lot of little two-story office buildings, but I can promise you the only one doing work in there is chickens.
So the KFC